Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of FYE Talks. I'm your host, Trinity Bradley, and today with me I have Susan Cooper, Alexis Hutchinson, and Brianna Harris. Can you all tell me about what you all do, what your job title is, and what your affiliation, all that good stuff?
I'll start with that. My job title is Director of the FYE program. This is a grant. It's called a Title III grant. It's a federally funded through the Department of Education. And I've been here since the start of this grant. And we have developed the FYE program, which is a little different, as you will learn in this podcast, from the FYE 105 class. So the program does a lot of supplemental stuff, information and what have you to the FYE 105 class that we'll talk about more in this podcast. But that's basically, I'm in charge of what goes on within the FYE program.
I'm Alexis Hutchinson, and I'm a first-year experience success coach. So I kind of act as an advisor and kind of go-to person for first-year students. I work to make sure that their first year is great and that they have one person that they can ask questions to and get information, get some support, get linked to campus resources, all that good stuff to make sure that they have everything they need to be successful.
And then my name is Brianna Harris. As you mentioned, I'm the FYE program coordinator. So essentially, I'm in charge of the FYE 105 class here at ECTC. I handle all curriculum changes, training of adjunct instructors, and essentially anything that is input into the FYE 105 class. I do that, and then I coordinate with the FYE program to help facilitate a good first year experience.
And so FYE obviously stands for first year
Yes,
experience.
first year experience.
We just use FYE because it is easier to say.
Yeah, really.
It's not a mouthful.
Yeah.
And it looks better on our logo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also FYE 105, it stands for Achieving Academic Success. That's the actual course title. So it's just easier for us to say FYE 105.
Right.
Yeah.
And everybody knows what it means, and that's kind of the way all the students have learned what that means as well. So, and honestly, it goes beyond their first year. I mean, they stay with us really until they leave ECTC.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other thing. It's not just for students in their first year at ECTC or their first semester, but they keep coming back to us. So that tells us we're doing something right if we're able to continue that relationship with the student.
Definitely.
So, Susan, what exactly is the FYE program?
What we do, or what we try to do in this program, is the objective within our grant is retention and developing an orientation class or course. And that the orientation course was somewhat developed when I came on board because they had a Gen Ed 101 class or 102, some kind of class. And what we've done is just help design a new curriculum for that same type class to try to make it better. The other thing that we're really focused on is retention, student retention. So retention takes on a lot of things, one of them being the class, the FYE 105 class, and making sure the students are getting all the information they need that first semester to have a successful transition from high school to college. But then a lot of other things go into retention, such as advising. Academic advising would be one component. And all of us here, there's 4 of us on the staff, and we all do some of that academic advising. And in fact, all of the students in the FYE 105 class, we are their academic advisor through the end of their first year. Another thing is we try to engage students in student activities. And that's the data proves and research proves that the more engaged a student is within the college, the more likely they are to stay and complete their degree and be successful. And then also we coordinate the orientations, and that's another thing that data is pretty strong, showing that if you have a good student orientation and the student attends the orientation, they're more likely to stay in school, and you're more likely to retain them. So we're really just kind of working on developing a good all-around student where they can be successful and having the experiences and activities available to them that would help them do so.
And also very important making connections too, because you all help the students a lot. Finding people, they come in here in your office and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. You're like, well, I know, just the person.
Don't worry, sweet child.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. Also, I'd like to highlight just real quick. There are so many students that come in. It's your first year. A lot of times, it's people that have never been in college before. Their family's never been in college before. They just don't know what they don't know. That's the whole point of it, right? And so, the FYE program and the class itself does a really good job of trying to help students find campus resources. Where even to go? Where are these people located? I've been emailing this one person, but I have no idea what they look like. All of that kind of stuff. So it helps you make those connections and answer questions you don't even know that you should have asked already. Yeah.
And it's twice as true for, older students coming back to college. It's like, you have never done this, you've never done anything like this. First year experience, we tend to think of traditional high school age students, but it goes far.
So much more than that.
Oh yeah, it's everyone. It's if you're coming back, you worked in a plant forever. Well, now the plant's gone. You got to have Plan B. The first year experience, you've never done anything like this. You want someone there who says, "Don't worry about it. We know who you need to talk to. You just need to do boom, boom, boom. Get back with me when you're done, and we'll move on to phase 2." And that relationship and that guidance is invaluable.
Yeah, and sometimes some of those students haven't been in school in 30, 40 years, right? And so this is really their introduction to college as a whole, and it's their reintroduction to learning in an academic setting, right? Because obviously you learn on the job, you learn in life, but there's some things that you have to be reintroduced to, right? Like reading effectively, note taking, all of that kind of stuff. And you guys do a really good job of partnering with a lot of the tutoring services on campus as well. And Susan, I don't know if that's something you kind of wanted to talk about, maybe in a little bit with some of the tutoring that you guys actually offer.
Right. What we learned after being here in operation for a year or so is that we felt like there was a real need for tutoring services, and for those tutoring services to be located very close to what we call the lift, which is really just it's a hangout for students.
We're here
And
right now.
we're here right now. This is the lift. And it's a place for them to come, and normally in days before the pandemic, we would have free coffee always available, usually snacks always available of some sort, popcorn, whatever, and they could come in and get something, a quick snack before they went to class or after class, or meet with the study group or whatever, and basically meet other students, a place to engage with other students and make connections and so on and so forth. But we felt like we needed some tutoring services close by, and we have tutoring with the TRIO program, which is Student Support Services, but that program is only able to accommodate the students that qualify for the program, and most of our students fall into that category, but not all of them. So we wanted something a little different, and we had funding available, so we basically expanded the FYE program to include a tutoring component to it, which is located right next door to the lift, and all of our offices are still right together. And we spent some time to investigate the classes at ECTC that students most often were not very successful in. And we hired some tutors to concentrate on those areas, which was anatomy and physiology, for example. And we bought some equipment, some bones and mannequins and what have you to help us with that. Math was another one, and I think that's across the board. We have several different math tutoring available on campus, but this is just another added tutoring component that maybe the student relates better to this individual than they do to another individual.
Yeah.
Or maybe they don't qualify for the TRIO program, and the hours are more conducive for their schedule if they come to the WIN Center rather than going to what we call the SMILE Lab, which is a tutoring service for the math department. So anyway, we created that component because we saw that as a way to help our retention with our students and to give another outlet and to work closely with them and try to encourage them to take advantage of the tutoring.
Well, I actually work in the WIN Center, and I am the math and science tutor, only science tutor on campus, thank you. But I get a lot of students that come in very lost. These sweet children come in, and they're like, oh my gosh, what is happening in my anatomy class? You know, some of them are scared. Like, whenever I first started college, I was like, office hours, that sounds scary. Like, I don't even know who this man is. Like, my professor didn't want to go to him. So I get a lot of students that come to me and they're like, it's easier to come and talk to you because you're another student. And the same thing with math, you know, sometimes like Miss Judy in the SMILE Lab won't be there. So they'll come to me and they're like, I need help, seriously. Like, what is going on? And we also have tutors in there for English. So if you need help writing a paper, you just need someone helping you format a paper or just proofreading it. You got Amanda and Trudy. You know, and the FYE program is really cool also because in the lift, you know, they always have their doors open. So if there's a student out here and they like, because sometimes they listen, and they're like, if students are like, oh my gosh, I'm struggling, I don't know what I'm doing, they'll pop out here and be like, come in here and let me talk to you. It's just really cool. And it's like a little community, like a little family. And we all just...
Well, I think we strive to really build bridges amongst a lot of different programs and try and create, you know, almost a web of services so no student falls through the cracks. You know, I remember I tried to go to WKU straight out of high school. I'm from Eastern Kentucky. My whole family's from there. College was like, yeah, you're going. And I was like, yeah, I'm going. And then I got here and was like, where am I going? I don't know. And yeah, so, you know, I won't say I fell through the cracks so much, but I kind of did at the big university, you know. And even when I got here, I don't know if I would have received as comprehensive services as if, you know, as I did when I found SSS and, you know, later when FYE came on and things like that. They really create a web that ensures that whatever your issue is, whatever barriers to higher education you're facing, be it, you know, financial or just not understanding the process and all the different things that go into college, you know, transportation, whatever the case may be. I think we really pride ourselves on making sure we explore every avenue to make sure we have a service or a connection or a partner or the knowledge to provide services and programs and information to students to be like, oh, here's your issue, we know a guy or we know somebody, you know, who can help you.
I think that's really important at every college. I've worked at several, and you know, there's a point where you get to where it's like you stop being able to use a service, right? Like, you know, you ask this person this question, this question, and this question, and they're like, well, you need to go to this place, right? And so, like, you've asked them, you've gotten a couple answered, and then now they're telling you go to a whole new office, go to talk to a whole new person. You try to get more questions, you know. And so I like that. Really, the FYE program is kind of like a one-stop scenario, right? You go in and you get your questions asked, or they directly connect you. They don't just send you off to go, you know, somewhere else. You know, they really do actually plug you in, and they have a lot of connections with, like you were mentioning, TRIO student support services. But not just that, with the tutoring, like you guys have full-time professional tutors that you partner with, like Yvonne Morris, who's our full-time English instructor here at ECTC, and she'll come in and, you know, do an hour or so. You guys will, you know, try to send people and connect people, you know, because learning styles are different. Whenever it comes to tutoring, sometimes you can be saying something to a student and they're not understanding it, and then they go and someone else says the exact same thing to them. And they're like, why didn't you just say that? And you're like, I did. Like 3 times. So, you know, that's always, it's just the way someone says something. Could also just be different. And it'll click. right? So it's important that you go to a service that is so plugged in, that does actually strive to connect you with the right people or the right services, something that's going to work for you, not just something that works for the majority of people, right? Because that doesn't always work for everybody.
Yeah, and that being so accessible is another huge part of it. I mean, with the lift and being able to kind of foster a learning community here on campus that, you know, you have access to more often than not, full of people who are here more often than not to help you. You know that anytime that you come in here and you're like, I'm at my wit's end, I don't understand what's going on, or I have this issue and it's mounting and I'm really trying to get it taken care of because it's stressing me out. You know, it's not like, well, what time is it? Oh, no, missed it. You know, you can always kind of come in, you know, pretty late, pretty early and get somebody here who's going to help you. You know, there's always a success coach available. There's always Susan is in here. You know, somebody is here who can connect you with that service and kind of say, okay, we're freaking out. Let's calm down. Let's bring it down a couple notches and then figure out how we can really help you.
And so many people in this department in general, or this program I should say, have some counseling background, so they can really actually like talk to you and get you calm and get you ready to, you know, start addressing the issue and all of that kind of stuff. And they take those problems and those issues very seriously.
Yes.
It's not like they just kind of ignore that you just said that out loud and then, you know, move on and
Wipe it off on the table, like, okay, well, here's the thing that I know how to fix.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing, also being able to admit, like, oh, I'm not really sure
Yeah.
what we need, but we're going to pursue it. That's the thing, is like, you may present a completely new question, and we're like, oh, I have never had a student pose this problem or this question, but that doesn't mean it's like, oh, sorry, I don't know.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I gotta figure this out just the same as you do,
Yeah,
right?
and then it's a challenge, and it's like, well, I'm going to find out. I'm going to call this person and this person. We're going to have a plan. You're going to feel confident when you leave somebody's office here that it's the issue is taken serious and that there are serious steps being taken to figure it out.
Yep.
And if we have to send you to another office, more often than not, it wouldn't be, it's not, okay, you need to go to this building, go to this room number and see. We will walk you to that individual, introduce you to the individual. We want to make sure that you get there and that you don't walk out of here and go, oh, just forget it. Or walk out of here and I'm too scared to go there and do that. I don't feel comfortable doing that. We will more often than not just walk you to that individual's office. And it's particularly if it's a question that we don't know the answer to either, and we feel like we want to keep learning so we're able to answer as many questions as possible. We'll go with you and stay with you to find out the answer for ourselves as well.
I think it's kind of funny because I think a lot of students will go to various offices, not only on ECT's campus, but just in general, right? And like they'll be like, oh, okay, this is my problem. And they'll be like, okay, great. It just sounds like we need to talk to someone in, let's say, financial aid, right? So you just go down and go talk to financial aid and go do that. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, like, I guess I'll go talk to financial aid. And you're like, yeah, it sounds like the next thing you need to do, go talk to financial aid. And then they leave the door and they're sent off into the great unknown.
Yes.
Yes.
It's like they have no idea where they're going, and they have no intention of going to financial aid.
Yeah.
Right? So if you don't walk them physically down to the financial aid office, then they may never get their answer, officially, because they don't know either where they're going or they don't know someone in there to really go to ask. It's very intimidating.
Well, I was going to say, I think a lot of people kind of don't know how intimidating it is for somebody to go into an office they've never been in with a bunch of people they don't know for an issue they have no idea how to explain. You know, that was always my issue in college, is like, I knew vaguely what the problem was. I was like, money. I don't have any. That's my issue.
Yeah.
Well, then, like, I would go into an office and I'd be like, I have a problem. And they're like, okay, explain it. And I'm like, I can't. I don't know what this is. I don't know what the FAFSA is. I don't know how that relates to my taxes. I don't know. If you can't adequately explain the problem, oftentimes you kind of just get dismissed as, not really having one.
Yeah, or you have a surface level answer.
Yeah, that doesn't.
And then you kind of are like, okay, like, sounds good. And then you leave, like, because well, they answered something. I don't know what that means, but they said it out loud. Maybe it's my fault. I should know the answer. Like, I should know what they're saying, but I don't.
Yep.
I'll never forget, I met with a student, this was early on, whenever I started here at ECTC, and they just were very timid, you know, they didn't necessarily know where to go, they were kind of nervous about going into places that they were unfamiliar with, right? They had a bunch of places that they wanted to go, people that they wanted to see, clubs they wanted to join, like all kinds of stuff, right? But they were always too scared to enter into the location, right? So I like just walked and was like, you know what, we're gonna take this hour that we had, like set aside for advising, we're gonna walk around campus, and we're gonna go into some of these places you feel uncomfortable going in on your own. And I just walked them around campus. They had questions they needed. We got brochures. We talked to program coordinators. We talked to advisors. We came into the lift lounge because they had walked by the lift, they told me, like 4 or 5 times, but they were so scared to come in. Because everybody was having so much fun, you know? Like, everybody was in here, like, talking, and, like, you know, everybody knew everybody. And they were like, I wanna do that. I was thinking about joining a club. And I was like, well, they have a club. It's the FYE club, right? And you should do that. Like, that sounds like great. Those people are awesome. And we walked up here, and I connected them with one of the success coaches. And so it's really just about, like, taking that extra step for someone that they may feel uncomfortable or a little shy about taking for themselves. But once they do it, then they feel so much better.
Oh, yeah, and I think that's the beauty of the FYE program, is the ability and the willingness to take that extra step, to be like, look, I get it, I was in your shoes, or I understand where you're coming from, and saying, like, what can we do that is both going to make you the most comfortable and the most satisfied, but also solve the problem, you know what I mean?
And I think we pride ourselves too on not assuming too much, because we're very familiar with the demographics in the region in which we live, and with those students. And just because a student has just come from high school doesn't mean that they understand everything in college. For example, a guy stopped by one time, I'll never forget, early on in the lift, and he asked, where are the lockers here? I mean, he was coming just from high school, and you think about it, in high school they had a locker, and they talk about, that's my first period class, or my second period class, because they're still in high school. And they're still used to that. So don't assume just because they've come from high school to college that they're aware of all the terms that we use for our, talking about college classes or advisors or that sort of thing. So that's the other thing that I think we try to be very understanding with students and try to help them through some of that, particularly if it's a first-gen student that is totally unaware.
And I think that's kind of how the FYE class and the program work really well together, because the FYE class is so geared towards covering that information. Like, this is what you need to do, right? This is this. You really come in and you understand, like, your career options. Like, you do some career exploration. You figure out what academic plan that you need to, you figure out what career you want, and then you figure out what academic plan essentially associates with that career pathway. Like, what do I need to do to get here? Right, you talk about transferring, you talk about all of these things, and you get that information. And the FYE program is so good at the supporting of that student while they're actually actively seeking out that information, right? So like, you get, this is what you need to do from your classes, right? You get, this is information that you should know. And then the FYE program comes in, they say, this is what you should do with it, right? This is like how you should use information that you gather. This is your next step, right? And it's okay to be kind of curious and, explore a lot of your options and be able to have that, like, self-confidence in your own path, right? And that's why I think that the program and the class work really well together. Because what they don't get in the class, which is that kind of how to, right? They get the what. And then you guys talk about, what do I do with it?
And then we can add, we have a lot of workshops that we have that we try to kind of follow along with the FYE 105 class curriculum. So if they're talking about time management, for example, we may have a workshop with a guest speaker talking about time management. Or finances, we may have a banker, and you can talk about how we've expanded that into the program.
That's the one I recommend you guys attend. I recommend you attend all of them, but the financial education one is popular. That one and the study abroad. Those are the two subjects that most people want to know about, and it's so good to get the information in class, but then you get to further explore it with an expert in the field, right?
Right. And we try to build workshops to follow along with the curriculum in the FYE 105 class. So you can go to class and get the information, but then you can have a supplemental session, for example, by going to a workshop and hearing from an expert in that field, or hearing more in depth about that particular issue, whatever our subject area.
So, Brianna, you're the FYE 105 class, like, coordinator lady. So can you tell them, like, what exactly is the FYE class? Like,
Yeah, like in a nutshell.
yeah,
Let me go into
kinda.
a lecture. The class is really like a starting point for a lot of students, right? You come in, it's your first year. I mean, you might be as a traditional student coming straight out of high school. You might be someone who's a non-traditional student that started a job, worked in a career, started a family, did whatever it was that they wanted to do at that time, and then realized now they want to come back to school for this whole new thing. It's a starting point for a lot of students. One of the main things that we do is, like I mentioned earlier, talk about career exploration, right? Figure out what career pathway, or at least get close to a career pathway that you could be interested in. And a lot of students come in and they're like, I know what I want to do. I know I want to do nursing, for example. That's a really popular one, right? I want to be a nursing student. I'm picking on her. But yeah, so like let's say they want to be a nursing student, but they don't necessarily know what goes into that, right? They don't know how to get there. They know they want to be a nurse. They have no idea what the program requirements are, like how stressful it could be. Like how do you get a job? What are the requirements in the state of Kentucky? All that kind of stuff, right? That's like a in the weeds kind of explanation, but we do career exploration. We try to narrow it down from all of the options in the world to 3, or from 3 to 1 if we can get there, right? So we do academic planning that could lead to a career path. We want you to really understand your career choices, not just what you want to do, but what will you do day to day? What are tasks that you'll do at work, right? What level of education do you need to be active? What is an actual median salary that you can expect, right? If you expect to be a school teacher and making $70,000 a year, I've got some news for you, right? That's not a thing. So we talk about all of that kind of stuff and really make sure goals are realistic, as they go as well. We talk about transfer options. Some students come in and they're pretty sure they want to transfer for psychology. They know what goes into that, but they have no idea where they want to go, right? So we, in the FYE program, try to connect them with some of those transfer colleges, right? We did a whole transfer event one year where we had a ton of different colleges sit as a panel. And all of the students got to attend those panel discussions based on what their interest areas were, right? So they got to really talk to several different colleges. We connect them to campus resources and teach them how to utilize your resources. We have guest speakers that come in from a lot of different departments here on campus, like financial aid. They visited. The business office wants to visit this year. We have a ton of people that want to come in and really talk about that. We talk about how to access very basic things while you're in college, right? In terms of IT, right? What do we use? Blackboard, right? We know what Blackboard is, but a lot of students that come in have no idea what Blackboard is, right? Blackboard is our online service that we use to access your online classes. Sometimes you'll be accessing everything in the online format, right? Especially nowadays, right?
Yeah.
So you'll have to, be able to access your ebook, right? Your e-textbook online. You have to do your quizzes, upload assignments, do all of that kind of stuff. And so we try to talk about that, setting up your email and checking it, right? Making sure whenever you email your instructors or staff members or anybody here on campus that you do it in a way that isn't I need this. You should start with
yo, what's up?
Ms. Harris.
Good morning.
I
Yo,
hope
what's
you're
up,
doing
Brianna?
okay. I kind of need this information from you.
You're my favorite teacher.
Yeah, really egg it on if you can. No, I'm kidding, but that's what we talk about that kind of stuff too. We do self-management skills as well, so we talk about things like learning styles, right? Personality styles, preferences, study techniques. All kinds of stuff, time management, financial management. I could go on and on. We do a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
And then one of the last things we do is really talk about strategies for achieving success. That's why it's called Achieving Academic Success. But that's something we do where we teach you different note-taking strategies, right? How to manage test anxiety. Because that's something that pretty much everybody faces, at least to some degree. So we talk about a lot of those subjects, and it's really a comprehensive introduction to college, right? And trying to make sure that you're on the right path before you get too far down the way, which is a big thing that we talk about, right? Because a lot of us, me included, whenever I started college, I had no idea, like, what I wanted to do. I just kind of did what everybody else was doing. I waited 2 years to declare a major, and the only reason I did it at that point was because they told me I literally couldn't enroll unless I did, because I ran out of classes that were general, you know? So they were like, you kind of got to figure this out. And I'm like, I understand, but I don't feel like it. And then I picked a major and hated it, but stuck with it because I thought I had to. Graduated, had a full breakdown, realized I don't want to do this, and I've just wasted 4 years. And how many thousands of dollars? And then, eventually found out grad school was a thing, and I could fix it. And so I did. So we want to, get to students before they get to that point, right? Know that they have this career in mind, and this is exactly what they need to do to get there. And they can start now, so that way earlier on they realize they hate it, or they realize I really, really like this, right? So it's just kind of a comprehensive introduction to whatever it is that you want to do.
And it's a requirement for all of our Associate of Arts and Associate of Science degree students. It's a 3-hour credit hours for the class. So, and we really recommend students take it their first semester, if at all possible. And if not the first, definitely by the second. But it's better if it's the first semester where you can kind of that first year where you need the most, have the most questions that need to be answered, and have, the most apprehension probably. That's the time that you really need to be in the FYE 105 class to have that built-in support around you.